Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Bruce with habowskistudio. Today's painting is going to be another 5x5 oil on panel. I'm working on a black gesso panel today, and I'm kind of continuing with this idea of doing some 5x5 paintings that I got the inspiration from a book I've been reading called Daily Painting. So I thought I'd give it a shot. I've never actually painted on a black panel before, so we'll see how it goes. And today's painting is going to be a night scene in winter of a residential street scene, a garage, and we'll see how it goes. So thanks for joining me. Okay, so what I'm going to use to sketch in today is just a light toned color pencil, some light lines to give me some base shapes to paint with, and this ought to be pretty interesting. We'll see how it goes, but I'm also hoping to, in the editing of this video, putting a picture in the video of what I'm painting off over in this area of the video so that you can watch me paint the subject, but we'll see how that goes in editing. So I'm going to start sketching and start the process. Now, even though this is an architectural subject, I'm not really looking for perfection. My reference photo that I printed out is already formatted into a square, so that does help a little bit. But if you're working from a larger photo and extracting information, composition within the bigger picture, then you can use some homemade mat board, L-shaped pieces of cardboard to create a viewfinder and create a square shape. Again, I'm not looking, I'm just getting some structural ideas of the house for placement, because once I get paint on here, if I start putting stuff in the wrong spot, I will have to wipe out the paint and start over, because on with the dark colors I plan on using, you know, it's a dark night scene. Any kind of white paint in an area where it shouldn't be is going to be very problematic. So we want to be careful. The colors I'll be using today is the Winsor Newton Winton brand Burnt Umber, Utrecht White by Utrecht, Utrecht Ultramarine Blue, Winsor Newton Winton Permanent Alizarin Crimson, and Winsor Newton Winton Sap Green, and see what we can come up with. Okay, for a painting medium, I'm going to be using the Gamblin Galkid and to work with the paint. And now I'm going to be working on mixing up some color to start the process of getting some richness on here. There's a couple of different ways you could go. You could really knock in your darks to establish how dark you want to go. Depends on the drama. Sometimes you want to accentuate the drama and really make it a super rich dark. In real life, it may be lighter than that. So you have to find what you really want to have impact in the scene. And so, but I think for sure I'm going to go ahead and get a dark tone for the background around the garage and house, and then I'll put the highlights in to start keying the painting. Now you could say, oh, let's just use a big brush to knock some color in quickly. And sometimes, you know, I've seen some of those daily paintings that are very brushy and expressive like that. I don't really get into that too much. I like to have the brush strokes be somewhat in scale to what I'm painting. So I'm going to just put in some color with a size, what is this, size 2 long flat here. So just dipping in a little to the Galkin mixture and into my paint I've pre-mixed using the Ultramarine Blue, Alizarin Crimson, and Sap Green, and a little bit of burnt umber, pretty much all the colors. And you might get a little glare off the studio lights since I'm using the medium. I'm not sure how the camera will pick up here. And the hard part that's going to be, I'm anticipating with working with night scenes is when you're applying the paint, the reflective quality, because the paint's wet and you'll get glistening off of your lighting and all that good stuff. We can just try to do what we can to avoid that, but it can be pretty difficult. I'll experiment. I pretty much have my easel as vertical as it can go. In an ideal world, maybe I could tilt this towards me a little bit to take the glare from the lights off, but just going to make it work. And this might be a good test too, because it would sort of simulate some of the light bounce you might get if you're actually painting on site at night with your book light and such. So cutting around does suggest, the house portion here that I sketched out. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill this in, just give you my thought process a little bit on what I'm doing, cutting around the positive shapes here with the negative paint color. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with this, and I'll get back to you. So you can see how I'm progressing here. I'm just cutting around with the negative shape of the sky. And like I was saying before, it doesn't really matter if you start with the brightest whites or the darkest darks. Either way, you can start keying the painting. Now I'm going to just start concentrating on chiseling out some shapes, and I'll do the rest of the video in voiceover. Hey, what's going on? Sorry this video is coming out kind of late. I usually try to be a little better about posting, but the holiday season tends to be a little busy for me, so here I am though. Very interesting working on this black gessoed panel. Not something I've ever done before. There's always a learning curve to it, but so far it seems to be going all right. I'm just, as you saw, sketching it out with the color pencil, and that seems so far to be working pretty good, as opposed to, of course, a graphite pencil, which you would not be able to see the lines and that sort of thing. And it doesn't seem to interrupt the paint at all in terms of getting into the paint, so that's a good thing. What's interesting is this type of subject I have been kind of looking at for years, and how I would handle painting it, and it's always been a challenge in my mind. I've done a few sort of night paintings in general in the past, and it's really something to think about in terms of how you're going to handle color, what you're going to use, how you want the finish of the painting to look, because one of the problems I would have is the end product being too reflective. So that was a little distracting. I mean, you have to varnish the painting when you're done, and depending on your varnish, it can be a little reflective and not really give the sense that you can look into the night. So that's been a challenge in terms of technical aspects I'm still working out. I have been on other paintings experimenting with a new varnish, Winsor Newton satin varnish, which is working out quite well so far. The one thing you would have to make sure of, if you didn't like the aesthetic look of it, is if you have a pretty smooth paint finish and there's any little discrepancies in that, the satin varnish will kind of, in a sense, highlight that, because it's a very matte satin kind of look, and it shows up any little imperfections. If you do some palette knife painting, that should not be an issue, but overall I do like the varnish. So something to try for yourself. It's always important to mix things up a bit. Now you saw me just a few seconds ago kind of mix some lighter tone into the shadow of the driveway as the other paint's wet, and that gave a nice effect of different parts of the snow cover on the driveway catching light, the ambient light, at different angles, and that's really cool. Gives a dimension to the shadows. Now here I am knocking in the pure highlights, and you can see right off the effect you get is really pretty cool. I really like it a lot. One challenge with me too with taking my reference photos for night paintings is I am no photographer, so I'm experimenting with settings on my digital camera to find out what might be the best, because I don't want to be carting around a tripod, so I'm shooting at a higher film speed, different things like that, experimenting. So it's like good enough to work from. I can of course make up certain parts or remember the scene. I'll still work that out in the future, but here I am again, kind of just reestablishing some of those stronger highlights, and then I soften that edge as the light starts to fade away from its light source. That's going to be key in a painting like this, is the edge control and how you feather edges. And it's not always about just blending the heck out of your brush strokes. It's about sometimes picking up another color that's a slightly different value and shade and mixing that in. So there's different ways to achieve that gradient, so to speak. I hope you're enjoying the format I got going on with the reference photo inserted into the video. I think it gives you a sense of what I'm doing as I'm looking at my reference photo. This particular picture you're looking at is from the computer, but you get a sense of how I cropped it, of course. It still is useful. You can see my comparisons to the original, what I might change and edit. Of course, there's some debris down at the bottom of the steps in the yard that I took out. So you'll should hear me talk about that later and stuff, but I'm just kind of getting some base layers in. And what's nice about striking in your lightest light after your darkest dark is it really helps you key something like this. It can be very difficult if you start getting into the shadow side of things too soon without that very strong highlight, and you find you've made it too light. So it's a very good, so far I like using this method to paint these night scenes. And some parts, of course, are going to be ambiguous in the shadows and the blending, so that's going to be really cool and add drama to the painting. Okay, so we're getting along here in the painting. It's looking kind of cool. There's some, you'll see in the photo that I tried to do with the video. This area in the picture is a little funky. There's some stuff in the yard, random stuff that's covered with snow that's distracting. So I'm going to have to be a little inventive in this area here to kind of make up something that's believable. And there's one little element in here right up against the wall here that's an orange snow shovel that I really want to try to accomplish getting that in there. To do that, I'll have to introduce a little bit of yellow in the palette, and I'll decide what shade of yellow later. Yes, this part is going to be difficult. And if you run into this in your paintings, you know, the key is we're artists, and it's our job to edit our reference material if we're using that, and finding the elements that really struck you about when you stop to take the picture for the painting. Try to concentrate on that part of the scene and accentuate that. And the other parts, they obviously, if you're working in a realist manner, need to be expressed. They also need to be carefully considered. I always have the analogy of thinking like a movie. You have the star actor, actress, and then the supporting actors, and you never want them on the same level. So that's something to think about in your painting of details. You can't get too, for the way I like to work here, can't get too loose and sloppy, but you can still downplay by watching your contrasts in areas that are not as important, maybe don't have harder edges there, that sort of thing. So things to consider when you're painting your subject. And this can apply to even straight landscapes and urban scapes as I'm doing here. it's really like the painting then kind of takes on its own reality. It's really pretty interesting sometimes if we want to pursue that. And one of the things lately that I've been listening to in the studio while I paint is a podcast called Savvy Painter on YouTube, and excellent conversations with artists on all kinds of different topic. It could be selling your work, how to break through artist block, techniques some artists may use. Super interesting channel. I highly recommend you check that out. Really makes you think of what painting can be more than just the technical aspect. What kind of feelings can you put into painting, some of the topics. So highly recommend it, and really interesting. It's really made me think. It's like I'm at a level in my painting where it's like I wonder what can be more. I've been experimenting with different techniques, more palette knife things, that sort of thing, to incorporate into my painting of realism. See how far I can take it and still have a painting be a painting and about the paint. I'm really intrigued by that, so we'll see where it takes me. Now I'm just kind of getting in some layers on the house porch supports and that sort of thing, and you can just see it really start to come to life. I really especially like that little net on the garage. I see that so many times when I'm walking around. You can just imagine the teen boys or whatever playing ball after school and that sort of thing. Then they probably grow up in the house, and it doesn't get used after several years and just sits there and weathers away. It's kind of a nice narrative to play into for the youth disappearing kind of attitude. So now I'm getting a little darker shadow up where the light's not reaching as much because a little bit of that porch overhang on the first floor. So in essence, I'm really just kind of lately really kind of been intrigued by how I can tell stories in my paintings a little bit. So I'm going to try to push that. I've done it in a few paintings in the past, not a lot. But as I keep painting and moving forward in my life and life events happen, it's like, how can I paint that? How can I paint that in a way that doesn't hit people over the head, but is a subtle message in the painting? So definitely everyone's individual, and coming up with your own method takes time. So that's what I'm going to try to work on. So I'm really enjoying how this is turning out. Probably the only thing I'd be doing different at this point is switching out the green for like a more cooler, like a phthalo green. But that's okay, live and learn. That's why you do these small pieces. I can definitely see doing this type of idea on a larger scale, especially this painting. I believe I might go ahead and enlarge it later on. This size format gives you a good opportunity to test out ideas and palettes and that sort of thing. So we're going to continue on, and I have to resolve this little area right over here, because in the reference photo there's some oddball things going on that just don't make sense, and I'm leaving them out, so I have to make up something. But there is a snow shovel I'm going to put in there, so I'm going to work on that, and to do that I have to introduce a yellow, and I'm going to think about that for a second, and I'll get back to you on what I'm going to choose to use to create the orange. I think I might just go ahead and introduce some cat orange and try that out. So yep, I just used some cat orange for the snow shovel, kept it simple. I think it's a nice little touch with, of course, the bluish color that I'm putting in the sky. Now this was a lot of fun. This is where you can really, of course my photo reference doesn't reveal hardly anything, but this is where you can be creative and create your own environment and suggestion of like trees and that sort of thing. Could have played it up even more, but just wanted to give a little hint, and that really adds a nice touch, a little depth to the painting. Now I'm finessing more of the, those are floodlights up in the corner there of the garage, and I'm playing into the light source and how it's affecting what's in the driveway. And of course you're going to have car tracks and things of that nature, so I'm suggesting some of that, and that was a lot of fun. Trying to be decisive with my strokes and not mess with them too much and overblend. You don't really have to overblend if you get the value of that color right as it sits in the shadow. So that would be key to practice with. And this can be taken, quite far if you wanted to, but I was really trying to find those key elements that make it the painterly realism. And I have found, after painting for so many years, I used to think real loose painting was kind of sloppy, and there's a lot that is, but that it just wasn't as refined as I used to like. But I'm finding as I keep painting that it actually takes quite a skill to pick out the right strokes to emphasize and to build a painting to give the illusion of reality with economy. And so I am trying to strike a balance with my work and finding that happy medium, because I don't want the paintings too brushy. I don't want to lose the form too much. I love showing form in a painting. So let me know your opinions, what you think on the topic. But it does seem, especially with a lot of plein air work out there, it's sometimes you get too loose that you're kind of wondering what was the whole inspiration of going outdoors in the first place. I don't know, just my opinion. So here I am working on, you saw me working on the basketball net. It came out pretty good, just a few strokes here and there. I kind of suggested it. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit longer than I usually do, but I thought it'd be interesting so you can see how I might do an urban painting, and then of course top it off with a winter scene as well. Let me know how you enjoyed the video, what you think I can improve on, or what you'd like to see me paint in a painting in the future to present as a video here on my channel. I'd love to hear your input. Like I was saying about the intensity of chroma and graying down the colors, you can see how the upper part of the porch on the first level there is not as strong. It gets a little stronger in brightness as it comes down near the steps, because the floodlights are starting to affect it a bit. And that's the cool thing that I like to do in a painting. And here I am at the very last minute. See, I'm putting in the handrail at the very last moment, because you definitely don't want to put that in too soon and then try to paint around it and make the painting look unnatural. So now I'm just putting a little snow on the rim, and boom, this painting's coming to a close. I hope you enjoyed it, and I got some more that I've done of these 5x5s that I'll be posting soon, so be looking for them. Take care. Okay, everybody, this concludes this painting demonstration. I think it turned out pretty well. I'm really happy with the result, and I think I might actually enlarge this piece to about maybe try a 12 by 12 and see how I like that. There's a lot of potential still left to do on it, and working in a larger format will let me kind of really highlight this snow shovel a little more with detail, that sort of thing. So thank you for joining me. If you're new to the channel and checking out the videos for the first time, thank you for watching, and I invite you to subscribe. Be sure to hit the bell icon for notifications of new videos. For everyone else, thank you for following my channel. And everybody, I invite to take a look at my Facebook art page, habowskistudio. I post pictures of paintings in progress and other little art-related things that you won't see here on my channel on YouTube. So until the next one, bye.